Miller Mahdi from 8451 here. Welcome to another episode of The Uplow'd. We're glad you're here. Each month we dig into the world of AI, thick data, machine learning, data science. We invite you to stick around and let us know what you think. Keep an open mind and stay curious.
Welcome to The Uplow'd by 8451. I'm your host, Dan O'Keefe. Today we're talking with Kelsey, Crookes, and Peter Johnson. Welcome to The Uplow'd, guys.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.
So we'd also like to welcome our viewers and listeners, as we have been doing the past several months, to another virtual edition of The Uplow'd. We're continuing to take all the necessary precautions to keep ourselves and our guests safe and healthy. So Kelsey and Peter, how are you both doing in that regard?
Great. Been doing a lot of baking, like a lot of the world. And my husband and I also got a puppy. So we've been very busy in quarantine.
That's exciting. Have they interrupted any Zoom calls of late or Microsoft Team calls?
No, I try to keep him downstairs. I'm upstairs.
That's great.
Yeah, no, I have I've been keeping myself busy. Currently, I'm out on the West Coast to get a little bit closer to nature, but traditionally I live in New York City, which is a little bit more confined. But my dog likes it more because Central Park, she's really into people watching. And there's not so many folks to go look at here in the country, but you might hear her occasionally chirping away in the back room here in the house.
Gotcha. Well, those occasional chirps, whether they be from children or from dogs or whatever the case may be, those are challenges, right, that we've become used to as individuals. But this year has certainly created challenges for brands as well, right? But also opportunities, especially in the area of e-commerce as more and more people choose delivery, ship, or pickup options for doing their grocery shopping. So you're here today as two folks working to help brands win the digital aisle. And let's talk about your particular roles. Lead consultant for KPM On-Site Product Strategy 8451, Kelsey Crookes, and Peter Johnson, Client Partner Lead for Microsoft PromoteIQ. How have you both been adapting to the challenging times from a professional perspective? I know you're both staying healthy and happy at home. How are things working on the work front for each of you?
Yeah, we've had to do a lot of transitioning throughout this year as brands shift their strategy. So we actually got a lot busier as brands were starting to think through, the Olympics is being postponed. How does that change where I want to spend advertising dollars? Or grocery is really the place to be. Everyone needs it right now. And so we've become arguably even more important, Kroger, as a grocery store, and our roles to help brands get visibility during this time so shoppers can actually find them online.
Yeah, and just to, I guess, second what Kelsey was saying, one thing that changed for me is that I traditionally have traveled quite a bit to meet with clients in person. And so I would meet with Kelsey and team on site in Cincinnati at minimum twice a month and also go to client visits. And so we were able to have really strong social bond and that, social capital, I think is the proper term, right? Which helps in this business. But I think it's really given us a bedrock foundation for moving forward to this challenging time, because we have been trying to help clients understand the shifting landscape, and it changes every day. And pretty much the one thing that we have all understood is that we can't predict the future, but we can do the best that we can to give our clients the tools to help them adapt. And so that's what we've been working to do.
Well, and that's a great segue into our first real topic, the helping provide tools to help the consumer and the customers adapt, right? So to help us understand the work you're both doing, helping brands win the digital aisle, which is what we're really talking about in today's virtual world, could you both please talk a bit about your roles and the work you do? Kelsey, let's start with you, and then we'll switch to Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I work specifically at 8451 on our product strategy and innovation team within Kroger Precision Marketing. So if you've listened to other episodes of The Uplow'd before, you may have heard one of my colleagues, Hallie, talk about our relationship with Roku and how we're making TV more accountable and addressable. That is a component of Kroger Precision Marketing. And so that's also the team that I work on. And so I specifically work on our on-site strategies. So when the CPGs are thinking about how they can become more visible to shoppers as they're moving online, and specifically when you look at the product tiles in search on Kroger.com, how can we get those more visible? So I work on that capability called product listing ads. And I work extremely closely with Peter and the Microsoft PromoteIQ team to actually power those ads. And then I kind of do a fun job of interfacing between the Kroger teams, actually creating these ad placements, and then our client teams to actually hear their feedback and see, kind of what we want to do and strategy for the solution. So I'm helping to make sure all of that's running smoothly and that brands can actually get in front of shoppers to ultimately help those customers actually buy their product.
But never a dull moment for you right now. And Peter, how does your role align with that?
Our role aligns. So I'm the face of the pod, essentially, that Microsoft PromoteIQ provides. Like, there's an entire team of folks similar. I don't know if anybody follows racing that's watching this, but I'm a big fan of Formula One or like NASCAR. There's probably 1,000 people that are making those things happen, and yet you only see one or two. And so my team are really that core group that's going out to clients, that's communicating, the talking points and the digestible information that can be actionable, that we've got a whole crew of people working on. And so I work really closely with Kelsey, but I partner, literally we're client partners with the Kroger business teams to go out and help empower our CPG clients to essentially take the insights that we can provide them that might be non-obvious. We're a self-service platform, but there's a lot of stuff in terms of interpretation and how to use this information directionally to actually make the proper choices to win that shopper over during the digital shopping experience.
Well, let's dive in a little bit more. By many estimates, e-commerce, which is what we're talking about here to a good extent, e-commerce usage has accelerated by 5 years because of the disruption we're experiencing right now in shopping habits from COVID-19. One example would be Kroger reported e-commerce sales grew 127% in the second quarter. With the holidays just around the corner, for instance, it seems every brand marketer is reevaluating their e-commerce strategy and thinking about the digital aisle, right? Let's talk with you, Kelsey, to address that question that is probably on many of our viewers and listeners' minds. In your professional opinions, how will the holidays be different in 2020?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head with e-commerce, and we're really positioned to take all of those volumes. So people are coming to Kroger.com more than they ever have. And we've also heard that 70% of customers are telling us that they plan to do the majority of their holiday shopping online. So we've already seen this explosive growth throughout 2020, and it's only going to continue during the holidays. Past years, we actually saw that e-commerce during the holidays was already growing. And so just like everything this year, it's only going to continue to grow. And one other thing that might be a little bit different this year is continuously shopping earlier. So shoppers already starting to think about the holiday shopping right now as we're recording this in October. So it will be really interesting to see how that gets spread out throughout the next couple months, as shoppers are definitely wary about potential out of stocks that they experienced earlier in the year with a lot of that panic buying and stock up behavior. So we're really interested to see how some of those behaviors change during the holidays.
And Peter, what's your perspective on this whole dynamic shift?
Well, I mean, it definitely has been a seismic shift. I refer to it as a time machine, like you did, 5 years into the future, right? When it's all over, we'll probably settle somewhere around 3 years into the future because people will start to trend back to their old habits. But what we've seen is, just a consistent drive towards, there's those staples that Kelsey was talking about that people really scrambled to get and continue to, stock up on when they see them in the store. But then also we see that people are really looking for ways to break out of the routines that they've fallen into. So we have like 31% of Kroger shoppers are looking for, recipes or different dining ideas. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be really interesting as we move into holidays, because what we're anticipating and what the research seems to show is that it's going to be a shift to a smaller gathering, more of a nuclear family unit. Mm-hmm. Friendsgiving, probably going to take a hit. Like, you're not going to be outside, you'd be outside your bubble, but you're not going to be getting like that, 20, 22 pound turkey. Rather, you're going to be looking for a smaller bird, but you also want to recreate the things that bring you comfort, such as like the traditional, components of your meal. Right. And then you might want to have like a different dessert just because it's like, hey, this is something new, to spice it up a little bit.
Right. So a lot of Cornish hens are going to be purchased
A lot of Cornish hens. Yeah.
Well, and with that 70% increase, or 70% of customers saying they plan to do a majority of their holiday shopping online because of that, e-commerce boom, what is it that makes getting noticed in the digital aisle so different from getting noticed in the traditional store aisle? And Kelsey, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So one analogy that we like to share is when you're thinking about the in-store experience, you're walking down the aisle and maybe you're in the chip aisle and there's hundreds of chips on this side of the aisle, hundreds on the other side of the aisle, and you're trying to navigate all of that, but everything's kind of right there in front of you. Mm-hmm. As you shift to maybe your computer, so a desktop, there might only be 25 chip products that show up when you type in chips, because now we've got a smaller screen. When you think about the app, now you might only have one or two that show up before you start scrolling. So we call it the constrained shelf, because where you used to have a pretty good chance of getting noticed, now a shopper is really only looking at those first couple products, that first row on the site. And so it's extremely critical now, as shoppers are engaging more online, that your brand and your product is the one that's showing up in those top couple rows, top couple products, because otherwise you're just not going to get noticed. And as shoppers continue with their routine online, they're just clicking what's easier for them. They're trying to be efficient in their shopping. So you have to be there. And so something else that's a little bit different too with the digital aisle is just the shopping routine itself. So people are trying to automate their routine. How can I just re-add the things that I already purchased? Kroger has a lot of that, which I think we'll probably talk about later with some of the personalization on our site. But it's really hard for a CPG to break into that routine and say, wait, I'm here, or I have a new product. How can I make sure that you know about it? Because now you're not walking past my end cap display in store. So those are all components that we're constantly thinking about as a way to kind of shift the mindset and make sure that shoppers too are getting the value of the online environment by being able to see those new products, and we can show them ads that are relevant to them to actually allow them to expand their basket based on what they might be interested in.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned that shopper value. There's value for both the shopper and the CPG, and that relates to measurement. So why would it be hard to measure results in e-commerce? And don't most marketers assume it would be easier to measure digital advertising than traditional media? And how are you step by step solving that challenge?
Yeah, so digital in general is easier to measure because we have that logged in account. You're logged in, especially if you're actually creating an order, checking out. We know who you are, and we can log that data back to you. Now, the thing that makes it more complicated, especially with grocery, is that shoppers are going back and forth. They haven't completely shifted to online. Yes, they're using it a lot more than they did before, but they're actually dropping into the store, picking up a couple of things. Then they're going back online. Maybe they're searching online, but then buying in store. And so this kind of crossing back and forth between modalities actually causes quite a measurement debacle for many retailers who do not have a way to capture some of that in-store behavior or know who you are. So this is where Kroger really comes in as a point of differentiation in the market because of our really powerful loyalty card. So 96% of our in-store sales are actually captured on the loyalty card, which allows us to really seamlessly pair up your online behavior with your in-store activity. So we know if you searched on your mobile app, clicked through different products. And so then we also know if you ended up going in store to actually buy that product. So our sales attribution kind of crosses both of those modalities to make that really powerful. And we don't have to model in order to do that because we actually know that one-to-one verified shopper in store and online.
So that begs a further question for you, Peter. Kroger Precision Marketing and Microsoft PromoteIQ have created a self-service advertising platform where brands can create product listing ads or targeted on-site display ads to help brands get noticed. How do these media products help brands overcome barriers in the digital aisle?
Well, I mean, it's really like a holistic like suite, right? Because I mean, Kelsey was talking about the shopper journey and like how shoppers now are looking for ways to be more efficient in terms of like their interaction, the time that they're spending shopping. So we have like the search and browse PLA, which is, which is considered like retail search. Mm-hmm. This is something where people literally, they're like typing in unbranded terms. 85% of the folks are searching for chips versus a brand name of chips, right? So it's still the same experience like going to the chip aisle, but it's a much narrower shelf. Yeah. So what we've done is this enables, brands to essentially in a very democratic fashion to bid and compete, against each other based on the term. Not based on the term, but rather, based on like what the shopper is searching for. I always like to find it's like, you're in the store and all of a sudden you want to connect the shopper to what like their intention to purchase, right? So like if they're in the chip aisle, you would know that they're in the chips section, but when you layer that in with the Kroger personalization science about what they know that they're searching for, Kroger is able to actually kind of connect the dots and interpret what the shopper is actually looking for and then feed us the results. And then we provide the advertiser the opportunity to essentially get their product at the top of that list.
Gotcha.
The thing that's exciting about the targeted on-site ads is that provides the same methodology, right, of connecting those dots between the shopper's intent and the search result. But now you can actually bring in, essentially like top of mind marketing messages that wouldn't be included in the product tile. So if you have a portfolio play, you can, remind shoppers that these products are all part of your, product portfolio and are complementary. It also empowers you to like seek out those shoppers in complementary targets. The analogy we use if they're a heavy cereal buyer, right, but they're shopping for milk, we enable you a way to reach a cereal shopper in the milk aisle. Which wouldn't be normal in a traditional store, right? You would only find cereal in the cereal aisle. So we're just like working on ways to really help, the CPGs reach the shoppers and then using like the Kroger science and what they really know about us, right? To make that a little bit easier.
So you're going to save me time from turning my cart around, go back to the milk aisle because I remembered as I picked up the cereal, right? I forgot the milk.
Exactly. Or what I have to do, because now so many of the aisles are one way, I find myself like walking backwards through the aisle, like in order as I walk past something.
Yep, get out of the way, make room, right? So, and I understand the platform that we're talking about works on an auction-based model. Is that right? So how does that model work? How would it compare to, say, buying search ads on Google?
Well, I mean, I think that the main difference, like search ads, this is retail media, which is like much closer to the funnel. So we would know, like, for example, search ads in Google, traditionally, it's like a keyword-based thing. So you're having the, pay to actually defend your brand. You're looking at a lexicon of terms that might actually like be trying to interpret what the person is shopping for. And therefore, like you insert your product at the top of that list. Mm-hmm. Our platform is based on the simple knowledge that if they're at Kroger, they're shopping for, Kroger items that are there. And so what we've done is we've made it very simple. Rather than, search or keyword terms, you bid, your product is based on the commodity or sub-commodity, meaning that you're only competing against like products, just as you would compete for chips in the chip aisle.
Right.
And so what that does is it really makes it much more democratic, because you're no longer having to pay to defend your brand. Rather, you're paying to promote your chip product against other chip competitors or yogurts or whatever your product type may be. And so that really empowers the smaller vendors to get access to their Kroger shopper and not having like a 900-pound gorilla that's just beating them down by making them pay to get to their own brand name.
Right. Gotcha. So I want to get to another related topic. Kelsey, most people have probably had the experience of being served ads for products they were not interested in purchasing, right? How do you protect the user experience and keep these advertising units from being a nuisance, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, this is super important to us at Kroger. We don't want to clutter our site with a million ads, and now you can't even find the products that you want to look for. And so, like we've been talking about, we want that whole journey to be as seamless as possible. We want the product ads to be in that search grid along with what you're already looking for and the ones that are the most relevant to you. So within our science, we are taking into account not only the bid that advertiser is paying or willing to pay, but how relevant to that shopper is that product. So that's another component of the auction that Peter was referencing. And so we're trying to make sure that it's a product that someone would actually want, and specifically that I would want as I'm shopping the site versus if Peter was searching for chips or you were searching for chips. And so the personalization on Kroger.com is really what allows this to happen. It's all powered, again, by that loyalty data. And so we create experiences on the site that use that data in the most helpful way to actually allow shoppers to add additional products to their cart to help them in that journey. So we have a carousel on the homepage called Start My Cart. And this is where a lot of people go when they start their journey. And on average, if they're engaging in that carousel, they add 8 to 10 products. And so we have ads within there, but it's still based on what they've purchased before to help them start that basket in a really efficient way. Mm-hmm. If you've also shopped on Kroger in the last 6 months or so, we released another carousel on the cart page called Forgetting Something. And so this is using that same type of science based on what you typically buy. So you're not going to see a product in there that's totally random that you've never bought before. We're trying to make sure that, you always buy bananas, but we don't see them in the cart right now for you. Are you forgetting them? And so we'll throw that in there. And there's ways for advertisers to also put their ads in there. And so this is a way that we can connect with the experience that the shopper is actually engaging on. So all of those are ways that we're trying to make sure that it's not just the highest bidder. It's not just the biggest player that's just trying to get their ad everywhere on the site. We want to integrate in the most effective way to meet the shopper where they are and actually help them build the basket, because we want them to ultimately check out and complete an order and make that as easy as possible.
It's creating that alignment between Kroger, the customer, and the brand, right? Mm-hmm. And so let's talk results. How do the brands, for instance, know if their campaign is effective?
Yeah, so in general, this type of advertising sees extremely high returns and conversion rates because you are really at the point of purchase. So we like to say that this is where it matters. You need your brand there because shoppers are actively adding products to cart and they want to check out. They're not just clicking around for the fun of it. They're trying to actually complete an order. And so when you get that click on your ad, over 80% of the time, it's actually on the add to cart button. And so we see that conversion coming from that. So in general, we see between a 3 and 6x return for these placements on site. Mm-hmm. And so PromoteIQ has several ways that you can see this measurement. So we've got reporting, we have a near real-time dashboard where you can check what are you spending per day, what is your sales per day. And that other component that I was referencing earlier is this really great evolution of the ability to see sales attribution from both the online activity and the in-store activity. So both of those components of sales are available within the platform. We've also got some other, fun metrics like unique users. So we know how many unique clicks you got versus total clicks on your campaign and some other things like that.
And Peter, it seems like in your position with Microsoft PromoteIQ, you're in a unique position and a front row seat really to see which products consumers are searching for online, right? What are some of the trends you're noticing in this search activity?
Well, that is true. Like, we are in a really unique position. And there's always there's holiday seasonality. It's just based on the calendar year and what, the types of foods that people typically, consume during that, part of the year. Easter is very different than, say, like Thanksgiving. Like baking, has been huge. It's always huge for holiday, but it's been huge throughout the pandemic because it seems like everyone, including myself, has a sourdough starter that's a very hungry little beast in my
We're all at
refrigerator.
home, right? We've got extra time to kill.
Those were things that I wasn't shopping for, but are now are a staple. The other thing that was a surprising trend to me is that we've seen like personal care items actually surge in as part of a consistent trend where shoppers are actually looking to consolidate the number of trips that they take, and they're choosing Kroger because Kroger offers probably the best grocery selection in market, but also has an incredibly robust, comparable personal care as well as like household items at the store as well. So you can, to Kelsey's point earlier, it's like efficiency, like you're wanting to make your shopping experience as efficient as possible. And the purchase cycle might be a little bit different, but you can all still get it through Kroger pickup. And the one thing I wanted to point out is that since Kroger does use your local store as the distribution point, like the things that you're promoting or that you're seeing are available in stock for pickup. There's the occasional, substitution because something might go out of stock between when you placed your order and when you completed. But for the most part, you're not wasting dollars against clicks that you can't fulfill.
Gotcha. That's good to know. And then, to close things out, to round up this conversation about the digital aisle and e-commerce, what's next? What's next for e-commerce, guys? What should brands expect the digital aisle to look like in 2021 and beyond? Peter, let's start with you.
Wow. Who can predict the future, right? I just know like what we're doing is we're looking for ways to truly leverage that Kroger insight that they have into the shopper and provide the best platform for our, joint customer, the CPGs and brands to reach that customer. Kroger has more insights than anyone in market, and it's real. It's real data. It's not modeled. And so we're just working on ways, strategically to provide advertising products that leverage that information efficiently and to drive results for the folks, which means basically purchasing their product in Kroger.
And Kelsey, how about from your perspective? What can we expect in 2021 and beyond that?